Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the inner critic and mindset training so that we can all set ourselves up for success. I want to tell you a little bit about Simply Be before we get started. I designed Simply Be out of a part of my life, which a lot of you will be able to relate to, was a challenging part of my life that I wanted to take my lemons and turn them into lemonade. I had 2 children under 17 months. My second child, my daughter Juliet, she was born in June of 2016, and I was on maternity leave for 12 weeks. And right around week 2, week 3, I started to notice just this little bump on her head. And if you can relate to this as a mother, at the midnight feedings, you're laying there, sitting there with your child, and you're feeling something, and you think, this isn't quite right. And I kept feeling it, but no one else could, because I'm nursing her, and I can notice this tiny, tiny little thing on the back of her head. Well, week after week, I kept bringing it up, kept talking about it, and no one noticed. No one could feel it. So what do they think? I'm the neurotic mom who's noticing a hair follicle, maybe a little ingrown hair, and I need to get more sleep, and I need to stop calling the doctor. Well, around week 8, week 9, finally the cyst had grown just enough so that the doctors could finally feel it. And right around then, I had this sense that if there's something wrong with my child, I want to be around so I can manage the health care, I can be with her. And the old career that I was in, I was a senior director at Eating Recovery Centers, which is an eating disorder center in Northbrook in Chicago. And in that time, I was also in an MBA program. So I was pregnant, 2 under 2, in an MBA program, a senior director at a Northbrook treatment center. So for me to be home to take care of a sick child was not going to be an option. And so I did what every rational mom would do. I took my baby to the CEO's house, nursing her, and said, I'm quitting, and I'm not coming back. And I had a lot of opportunities waiting for me, and so it became a shock, to say the least. Well, we'll fast forward a little bit, and my daughter was fine. It was a dermoid cyst that grew a couple centimeters on the back of her head, no big deal, totally fine. But that moment in my life shifted me into a direction that I really wasn't prepared for. But when you are a mother, you're meant to be in survival mode. And that's really where I started out with what I have now. So my journey started out as a small goal. And that was to build a private practice under my name, hang my own shingle, and have 12 clients within 6 months. And for me, I did the numbers, and I will talk about in this presentation what you need to do to start to make steps towards this life that you want to build. And I also want to tell you that it doesn't need to be your biggest ambitious goal. You can just start with a little goal and build on it, and that's what I did. I wanted to see 12 clients within 6 months. And I knew that that would recoup my salary from my previous position, and it would kind of get my feet on the ground. I was very nervous. I was postpartum and getting an LLC, getting a tax ID, doing all these things that we need to do. But I did it because I had to have a dual income family, and there was just no question about it. So I had no options other than to create something that was going to fit the lifestyle that I envisioned for my family. Well, I was in a private practice called AG Behavioral Health and Consulting, and that's a very big, wordy title or business name. I don't suggest naming your business, 5 words. But that's what I did because I had small dreams. I had small goals. And what happened was I went and did that for a year. I was seeing 20, 30 clients a week, really, really loving it. And then I started to burn out. I started to realize that for me to build a business and have a family, I needed to do it differently. So again, I was feeling stressed, I was feeling anxious. So I did what every normal parent would do. I ran away and I escaped to a yoga retreat center for 3 days and left my 2 young children with my husband, and I said, I'll see you later. I found a retreat center on LinkedIn, I'm going. Okay. And I said, I'm paying for it for myself, so, not much you can say. I'll expense it through the business because I'll do some CE trainings out there. And I made it happen, which if you know me, you know that I make things happen. So I went to a retreat center, and while I was on this mountain called the Sound of Music Hill, what you can't see is it's the Sound of Music Hill. It's like this, and then there's rolling meadows out in the Poconos Mountains in Pennsylvania at the Himalayan Institute. And out there, I took this picture because I knew something was happening. And out there, I was thinking, how do I feel this way in the suburbs of Chicago? How do I simply be this there? How many of you do not think that you have the time, the energy, or the money to reach your goal? Okay. So we've narrowed down to the problem. We don't have the time, the energy, or the money to meet our goals. So those are obstacles that we need to break down before we start to really go after that big goal. We have to break them down one at a time, and that's what I'm going to do with you today. So talking about mindset. The mindset is a perspective or an attitude that you have about yourself and the way that you talk. A mindset can be negative or it can be positive. If it's positive, it feels like a best friend. If it's negative, it feels like an inner critic. And that's what we're talking about today. So the inner critic is common when you, in your past as a child or as young adults, have had something happen to you that has taught you a core belief about yourself. The core belief about yourself that you are not good enough, that you're not smart enough, you're not strong enough, you're not connected enough, that you are a woman and you cannot be as strong because you have to manage the family and the finances and the home and a career. These things that we've been taught growing up as a child and beyond is that inner critic voice. And if you sit and listen to your inner critic voice, you can probably associate it to a few specific people in your life, whether it be your mom, your dad, your siblings, an ex-partner. That inner critic came from someone telling you something long enough that you started to believe it. And then you've internalized it to the point where that's now your foundation and that's your basement. And that's what you're building your house on. And what we're trying to do is break that down so that you have a new foundation and that inner critic will be there. It will be a crack in your foundation, probably for the rest of your life. But that inner critic does not have to be the one that controls us because we can talk back to the inner critic. That's